Well, thanks for inviting me, first of all, to this ProHealth meeting. I'm going to try to show and explain within the project the structure, some of the current status of the work package 4, about the attractive name of role of farm environment on the temporal expression of diseases in pig production. Besides of explaining the work and the package as is, I would like to explain a little bit for you to frame properly where this is coming from. This is not a shiny idea that is coming arising from one day to the other. In fact, I'm going to use some minutes of introduction to understand that this particular work package, between the novelty and the innovation of the whole project, is coming from things that are part of your daily life and that are part of things that are ready on the sector and are going to be very present during the next years, very soon. Of course, besides of this different, as you would say, introduction, I'm going to describe some of the environmental influencers. I will remind some of the concepts that you already know, but I'd like to quantify some of them. Remind the diseases that we have included in this project, the novel, the new, the innovative approach on how to deal with data collection, both from animals and from environment. Sometimes that, in some cases, is a pain. We are proposing a new method that is fluent for doing that. And finally, I will use the last 5 to 8 minutes to show some of the first results that we are doing just using this approach. I don't know if you know this. We're almost 7 billion people, and 4 billion of us are using a mobile phone, but only 3.5 billion are using a toothbrush. One of the things that this is telling is that for 500 million people, it's more important the mobile phone than the toothbrush. If you think or you look around you, you will see that most of the people is continually using the mobile phone 24/7, more than 90% of the time. And even a new syndrome is defined. It's nomophobia. What is that? No mobile phobia. Is that fear of being without your cell phone or you're losing your signal? Don't think of you, think of some of your friends. But I can tell you that it's a very uncomfortable situation. These figures have grown up during the last couple of years when I was reviewing this. And many people, now more than 50%, is the first and the last day and the last thing that they do every day, look at the cellular phone. We try to be always connected. And we are spending at least 3 hours a day socializing, doing things relating to others. So if we want to relate to others, even in this business, we'll try to be where people is paying attention. There's a huge amount of data generated every day. I didn't know that 2.9 million per emails per second, 20 hours of YouTube video every minute, more than 50 million of tweets per day. This is what we have called big data, or it's called big data, and it's in every part of your life. The important thing of big data is to find the patterns that are inside, and this is used for many things of your life. Have you wondered why you have been checking that car a couple of days ago and now you're receiving continuous messages in your mail or whatever about that? Or you have been withdrawing money in certain ATM and now you're getting offers about that. Many people is using big data for understanding better needs and solving problems. And this is getting more and more complicated, and this is particularly related to what I am going to explain later on. Internet of the Things. Probably you've heard about it. Internet of the Things are the things that are sending data, devices that are connected to internet. And that could be a parking, an engine of an airplane, whatever. In fact, in 2007, it was the first time that the number of devices and the number of people connected to internet was the same. Right now, the ratio is approximately 4:1, and it's expected to be at least double in 2020. So every day are more and more devices sending data without human intervention. And to finish this part of the introduction, we have now new tools. Besides of our beloved Excel sheets, now we have the so-called business intelligence tools. I would say that every chart that you may say in Google Analytics, in every website, is based on this. Our interactive dashboards, nice to see, that are helping us in many aspects. Improves the decision-making process, reduces the risk of bottlenecks, help us to know our business. Why this unexpected introduction? Because all of this that is part of our daily lives, big data, mobility and connectivity, the cloud, and these new tools, the analytics, are helping us to our business as well, to swine business or to poultry business or to livestock business, and not only locally, worldwide. This is from United Nations, and it's telling about how mobile technology is boosting innovation in Kenya livestock sector, simply because these guys are able to communicate. In fact, they do more things and there are more mobile payment connections than banking accounts there in Kenya. A friend of mine asked me about what city do you think that will be the next World Tech Capital? I was thinking, I don't know, an Asian city or Austin in Texas, that I've heard that they were the first city of experiencing a gigabyte of speed. And no, it seems to be Nairobi. And this guy that is there in the middle of nowhere, taking care of their cattle, is able to do things simply because he's able to communicate. And they are investing dozens of millions, billions of dollars just in communications. But this is, you may say, well, this is nice, sounds good, but it's from internet. Well, we're doing things in Gambia. What we're doing in Gambia, just helping people, because we are able to communicate to them. Some of these principles are used in this project. In fact, this is something that every company of every sector, and of course including livestock sector, and including every farm of every size, from a guy that is having 50 sows to a large company that is having 300,000, has to deal with this. No way of avoiding this wheel. Needs to take care of data collection of different kinds, animal or environmental, as in this case. Need to process that properly. Needs to generate a report that should be distributed to the people that is useful. Could be the farm manager, could be the vet, could be the production manager, could be the CEO. And finally, is required a brain in front of it that takes the best, takes a decision, and implement that decision. This is something that must be done. And if you were in Eurotier or in every of the last trade fairs, you will see that there's dozens of new toys, new devices arriving that are generating data. From electronic sow feeding, from the same equipment for growers and finishers, from others for lactating sows, new pistols that are waving the animals for 3D technology, scanners that are connected to the smartphone, an iPad that is able to test the semen quality, and of course the sensors that we're going to present today and how they are working. The interesting thing is that all of these are working without human intervention and generating tons of data. And now the decision is not getting the data as we have to do from animals. We have to do something, we have to write, we have to type on a computer or in a PDA. This is generated automatically. So the decision is how we're going to use this properly, not alone, but crossing with health, reproduction, or others. So first question, the basis or one of the bases for this work package within this project, only animal data for real time or for improving health monitoring? No. In fact, it's one of the first things that when we start working in this business, we hear this is very important. Pathogens don't act alone. They have huge influence on health, and literature demonstrates that very, very nicely. But they are rarely used because we are able to see thermometers, maximum, minimum in the barn. We can see equipment that is there, but you need to be in front of the screen many times to see what is going on. We have counters. So if it's not easy to collect, because normally no one is writing that, no one is typing later on, no one is processing, it's expected that there's no tradition on analysis or monitoring of this data, despite we all know that it has a huge influence on that. Temperature, water intake, CO2, humidity, electric power. So the combination of traditional animal data related to health, performance, mortality, injections, whatever, with environmental data, theoretically, is promising a good combination for understanding better. The working scheme is quite simple. We try to follow up things, either if they are as we expect or are deviations. And when you start looking at, there are deviations. Sometimes you have a spillage in the water. Sometimes temperatures are going over or below of your expectations, and you don't know how long that problem is there and how it's really affecting that. Once that you are able to understand what is going on, you are able to generate something practical, because all of this must be practical, must be good science with a good basis, but must be practical at the end. Initially generates an alert for the farmer, for the user, for the vet, but at the same time is generating good data for you, for later processing, for understanding better which is the pattern, which is what is going on. So let's review some of those influencers. We'll be very fast in this part because it's something that is well known. That temperature is a major influencer in the trigger of disease is very well known from approximately 3 decades. The first references and the best references, and very similar as Professor Maes explained before, things have changed very little during the last decades. It's something that is very important to understand, which are the failures related to that. By the way, these pictures are not from internet. We're using thermography to understanding farms, and we see many things that normally with your eye you don't see. And you see how many failures are, for instance, when a heating system is working or not, or if the room is as expected or is colder, or whatever. Of course, we're looking for this thermoneutral zone all of the time, and it's depending on a number of factors. It's depending on the size of the pigs and the quality of feed consumed, many of them. But what we have seen is that when you start looking, you see that there are problems around that. Of course, this is essential from the very beginning. It's not only important in growers and fatteners. In the nursery room is something that we can see how many problems and deficiencies are found in a routinely way. And this is clearly when you go below the minimum, but sometimes over the minimum, in particular in hot countries and in Spain. In this summer that we have a lot of weather problems because of the high temperatures, if you are not careful enough with your ventilation system, with a window that should be open at a certain time or should be functioning this cooling or the other, you may face serious problems, and a number of sows may die, as this happened in several cases in lactation, or a full nursery because of that. This is very well described in the literature. Water intake is a huge influence in body conditions, and it's interesting because could be both a predictor or an explainer. I mean, if animals are not drinking as expected, this could tell you in advance that is a problem coming. Or if you see that, could explain that something it's really going poorly. Something that we have seen using these devices within this project is that animals are not drinking this way. They have a pattern, a daily pattern, something that you may see here. They wake up in a way, they start drinking, and goes down till the next day. And here we compare what literature says versus what we really measured. And sometimes the difference could be huge. In a normal situation, 20 to 40% of difference is something that you can find. And it's not important only in terms of what literature say. If you're using a medication, such in this case, you can miss your dosage up to 30%, as you may see here. This is a daily pattern of one of the farms within the project on how pigs are drinking. You see that they are doing the same every day. Intake is growing with the days, and you may see here this. It's an spillage. You're losing water, not a problem if you have water enough. Could be a problem because you're making more slurry, but could be a real economic problem if you're using a medicine just in here, besides of the environmental effects of sending a lot of active metabolites to the environment. The first paper that we presented to the American Association of Animal Science was measuring this, and it was about up to 40% of difference between what is expected and what pigs are really doing. So this is something that must be taken into account for that. Another influencer, very well described, relative humidity, related to respiratory disease and skin diseases. Low temperature and low humidity promote that particles remain suspended and go in depth in the lung tissues. This could be a source of problems. High humidity is very well related and described to Staphylococcus aureus because of that, besides of the easier transportation of airborne transmission of different organisms such as Mycoplasma pneumoniae or different viruses such as influenza or pseudorabies. Another good indicator that till now very theoretical, but not more than that, CO2. But CO2 is a good indicator of the quality of your ventilation. We've heard you'd better avoid a concentration above, let's say, 1500. But what do we have? It's easy. Now, just placing a sensor, you can see what is your concentration, and those sensors are very, very sensitive. In fact, we start testing at our office, and it was easy to see when there were people there, because just a low number of persons increased that. This is happening the same. In particular, in Europe, I have placed a picture here from Latin America, could be from Asia as well, because they have no problems because of the weather. Winter here is hard, and you need to take care better of proper ventilation. So CO2 could be a good and cheap indicator, and that could be related to later performance of clinical symptoms, etc. Besides of, it's not only that, poor ventilation is not only an increased concentration of CO2, there's an increased concentration of airborne particulates, other gases such as ammonia. It's affecting the behavior of the animals, increasing aggressiveness and some other non-convenient things. So based on this all, we have proposed a new protocol for data collection, trying to combine classical animal indicators and environmental indicators in a smooth way. What we are doing is placing some of these devices that are working in many parts of our life, but right now are usable for our business. We place some sensors. We use a system and a smooth system, and I don't mind what is the system to collect data. I want to do it. You can use a PDA, you can use a smartphone, you can use an iPad, you can use a classical computer. We are using a digital pen, which is a pen that is writing normal ink with normal paper. Why? Because it's very natural for the people. And I have the privilege of visiting many farms in many parts of the world. And in all of them, they have a pen and a piece of paper. This is natural for the people. So besides of what they are doing, we use this because it's natural for for them. But I don't mind. This is just a mean for a purpose. Using this and a specific, I will show you later, forms for the purpose that we are looking for, we collect that. We use this cloud, this connectivity, all of the things that are part of our lives. We send it to the cloud. We generate an automated processing, no intervention, no typing, again, no generating huge Excel sheets, to see what is going on and to build up a robust data set to later perform the statistics, the analytics that you really need to do it. Couple of comments about this. It's like a pen, a little bit thicker. It's using kind of small scanner that is there, but for the user it's very easy. I'd better use some examples. And the form, the only thing that this form, that is a normal form, the only thing is that has this pattern, dot pattern, that is telling the pen where he's writing. If the pen is writing a date, or is writing a figure, or is writing text, or whatever. We are using normal smartphones, the smartphone that every farm worker may have on the pocket. And the only thing important related to the smartphone is that we are using that SIM card to collect data from the pen and send it directly to the cloud. For the worker, he just hear a cling, thank you, data sent, and that's it. This is a form, one of the forms that we have designed especially for the PROHEALTH project. Since this is a general view, I'd better put it closer, and you will see where we're going to write what is interesting. The batch code, the date, the age, the farm code, whatever. They're going to write it with a pen, and this is what the system receives. Normally, it's working with over 95% of accuracy, which is quite good. And besides of that, the system has a double check system. To give you an idea, a fax system, I mean, someone is sending a fax and a person is typing, accuracy is over 90%. So the system in general is good and delivering good with lower intervention. Of course, we have defined within the work package different parameters to understand the onset of the diseases, general farm information, the environmental parameters, performance parameters, diseases, medication, mortality. General farm information is quite close to the work package one, as has been explained this morning. Tommy was explaining that, and Professor Mais was doing the same as well. Location, farm size, average productive diet in the last year's health program, all of that is considered in there. This is one of the farms that is working within the project. The environmental parameters, we are collecting ambient temperature, water flow, relative humidity, and carbon dioxide. Every 10 seconds, we get some data and are sent to the database. A quick look, how are these sensors? These are the specifications, the construction, the temperature range, the accuracy. This is the sensor, and you see how it's placed in a farm. For the water flow, it's the same. You just cut the pipe, place it inside, and it's measuring which is the water intake of that particular batch. Relative humidity, the same. These are the specifications and the aspect of the sensor. CO2 sensors, this part of is measuring in a continuous way, the specifications as well. And of course, every of them can be seen in every device. You don't need to be in front of your computer's office. You can be using your in front of your iPad with your phone or whatever. That's part of life. Besides, of course, of building up a proper data set to really analyze properly the relationship, because statistics is everything but easy related to this. Which are the performance parameters that we have defined? The right ones for every productive phase. In yields, feed consumption and weight control, gestating sows fertility information, lactating sows fertility information about different aspects, nursery, grow finish. And for the diseases, we have defined not only the different categories, gills, nursery, and grow finish, respiratory, enteric, nervous, lameness, skin, bite, and others. And we have defined different categories, which is 4, light, mild, severe, and irrecoverable. And every disease is categorized in one of these severities. So we are, in every batch of gills, of nursery, grow finish, we are defining the disease, and we are defining the severity of the disease. It's properly done at farm, and later on is written in the form and sent, following the individual pig care philosophy that it was promoted by SOET. It's a philosophy that I think that is fitting very well in here, because it's based on proper observation, thinking, and acting in consequence. About respiratory disease, very few things to remind. Is the most diagnosed to our data, or to be exact, to SOET's data. They have finished a 3-year project observing 1,100,000 pigs, and respiratory disease is 36% is the first diagnosed disease. Enteric is the second one. Of course, it's not that. It's the effect on growth rates and feed intake and a higher mortality, very well described all of the time. For enteric disease is the same, and the impact, I think that is needless to say, to remember, is huge for different reasons. Lack of homogeneity, poor growth, mortality is very well described. I am always providing some of the references, because for every statement on every slide, I think that it's easy to find at least 20 good references from last decades. Of course, nervous diseases as well. In this case, it's interesting because prevalence is low. It's around 4% of the total, based on SOET's data, of the total diagnosed disease. But mortality is the highest, as expected. No one will be surprised about this. And one of the things that we can do with this approach in this project is that we are able to know not only that we are having 4% of nervous system problems, but when we are having these problems. Based on the age of the piglet, we may know if the problem is in nursery, in late nursery, at the entry of grow finish, or where is it. We have included lameness, which is probably one of the most challenging problems and growing challenges, including sows and nursery grow finish. It's, if there's an example of a multifactorial disease, could be this, because it's related to nutrition, related to the growth rate. It seems that the faster the growth is, the higher the risk of the problems related to the presence of microminerals and vitamins. Is related to management and behavior as well, and proper mixing of sows. Sometimes when there's osteochondrosis, the joints are suffering a lot. Housing, because poor flooring or humidity, and of course infectious disease. Sometimes we think in lameness immediately as problem of a streptococci or a mycoplasma hyphae, and no. Just only a part of them are related to this. So there's a good influence of some environmental parameters around this. So an early identification of the different sources, the different risk factors, is something that could be, and even more, based on data that Professor Jarko Noemi presented before, about the importance of this one. Finally, skin diseases as well, either if it's related to biting or mange or some others, and including tail biting. The recent data about quantifying the importation, it seems that almost 2/3 of the growers and finishers are having some degree of damage due tail biting. We're doing the same for gestating and lactating sows related to, of course, the syndromes that are expected, mastitis, metritis, agalactia, etc. The medicines used, we're going to understand better how we are using medicines. Not an exact brand, that is not important. How the molecule is used. And if we are using properly, if we are using the right medicine at the right concentration, because what we are going to write is that for the farmer it's very easy. I'm using 2 cc's of amoxi, blah, blah, blah. But the system is calculating if that dosage is right for that pig at that time, and if you are overdosing, underdosing, or using that properly. Some other medicines as well, but focuses on antibiotics. This is the form defined for this part of data collection. You see here every of the diseases for respiratory, for enteric, nervous, lameness, skin, bite, and others, which is the product, just with a code. Amoxicillin could be, I don't know, 001 or whatever. If it's injection, feed, or water, which is the dose, the rest of medicines, if can be used, is not mandatory. They're going to write what they are comfortable doing. We hope to encourage them enough to collect as much information as possible. We will collect mortality, but not mortality in general. Remember, we're going to know when these pigs are dying, so we will see the time course evolution of mortality, not only 4%, but this 4% is distributed this way or this other way, including dead pigs and euthanized pigs, because sometimes runs are not considered and are pigs that are sold apart or are euthanized because of low value. And this is important in economic terms for feed, the part of Professor Niemi. The reasons for every of them. And this is the farms where we are running this work package, up to a total of 26 farms from different countries. I'm explaining here only the swine part, but we're doing the same for poultry, for broilers, for turkeys, and for hens as well, in Spain, in France, in UK, in Belgium, and in Cyprus. The statistical analysis, now I can give a general overview because it's going to be complex. Since we're going to deal with different sources of data, and some of the techniques are the techniques for the proper statistical analysis have not yet been defined. Anyway, we want to estimate the incidence and the prevalence of each disease and monitor trends by the main factors: productive phase, time, regions, etc. And later on, a cohort study to measure the association between the risk, the different risk factors, the incidence of different diseases, crossing information, classical, animal, performance, reproduction, etc., with environment. Or in other words, how CO2 is affecting respiratory disease. Can we say that over 2,000 ppms, the risk of respiratory disease is double? This is the kind of output that we expect. And of course, for each risk factors, we're going to relate or not some of them: location, farm site, genetics, with every of the diseases, with mortality, etc. This is a classical matrix to define what it's going to do. And we have already started doing this. We are collecting data from piglets, from growers and finishers, from gilts, from gestated sows, from lactating sows in classical farms. Some of the things that you see are quite familiar because are very standard in Europe. I'm going to show some of the results. And these are just figures. It's not the most sexy, attractive layout, but that doesn't matter. This will be done by other partner of the project, which is TBIX. They will do that. And we have done this based on existing data, but enough to show to you. These are all of the categories we are dealing with in the project, and in particular in this work package: gilts, gestating sows, lactating, nursery growth finish, and in poultry, broilers, broiler breeders, turkey growers, turkey breeders, and and layers. Let's take a look to nursery and environmental information collected real time and used later as explained before. This is what we see about the concentration of carbon dioxide. We define here the batch. Our unit is the batch, a nursery batch, a growth initiators batch. When we start controlling the initial age, the initial census, the average initial weight, and how is the system tracking, in this case, CO2 concentration. This is for flow, water intake, the daily pattern showed before with many days in here. And of course, this can be represented as an average media, but just for you to show. Humidity as well, or temperature, as you may see. In this case, you see that this is a really hot summer in certain farms. But we can do some comparisons as well. We can compare two batches. And in fact, this is one of the purposes in the study. I want to see if this batch compared to this other, and this is different because of the risk factors that we have defined, the genetics, the housing, the ventilation, whatever. And I want to see if is there any differences related to that. And it seems that we are able to see something. In these cases, batches are within the same farm. We see that not all of them are so good and sensitive. Variation is higher in one of in this so-called VEN U2 in red for temperature. We see that water intake, the pattern is similar, but the red one, the one, is showing all of the time a lower water consumption all of the time. Similar for relative humidity, putting apart this peak, and with a constantly higher CO2 concentration. So overall, it seems that this room, this barn, is less effective about environmental control and its indicators related to that. When we see what is happening related to diseases, we see that, and it's a first glance, no statistics, nothing, it's the very beginning of the beginning. We see that there are more problems in the barn with poorest environmental control than in the other. And the same with water intake. So what we start to see is that it seems there's a logical correlation that later on, because this is just a very small part of the data that we expect, we're going to be measuring about 1 year. So this is the very edge of everything, that we will be able to quantify some of those relationships for the benefit of the project and the sector. The same for mortality. It seems that at least in this case is current, and see what is coming. So based on this, I hope that now you understand a bit better why we are using this approach, which is the innovation and the novelty. I would say that is the first project of this importance, of this big, implementing this kind of approach, using things that are there on our lives and on the market. As I told you before, remember last year, we have started with data collection. We are start crossing environmental data and animal data, and it seems that things are logical in terms of it's expected what we see, and in a way, and this is just a guess, of course, but we perform analysis, see what's happened. We can perform monitoring, see what is going on, and hopefully we can go at least the first step on predictive analytics. Predictive analytics, if you Google that, you're going to see that is something of growing importance and use. And if we have data enough and quality of those data enough, hopefully we will be able to predict the risk of having problems or success or whatever. But I am just guessing. I used to be very optimistic, and I don't want to say that this is going to be possible. We would like to happen in other sectors. And with quality data enough, this can be happening. So hope that this is, makes you understandable the objective and the structure and the current status of the task in this work package. And I am open to any question you may have. Thanks for your attention.